this situation right here is no longer just messy. It's starting to feel calculated, emotional, and honestly, a bit reckless. What we're seeing now is something that's clearly escalating beyond simple drama, and it deserves a closer look. I'm going to break it down step by step, because the more you really pay attention to what's unfolding between Claressa Shields, Papoose, and Remy Ma, the less it all seems to add up. Every layer you peel back only makes the situation more confusing instead of clearing things up. At this point, it almost forces you to think about whether this is just typical relationship drama playing out in public, or if there's something much deeper and more strategic happening behind the scenes that most people aren't seeing. Let me know as we go, because I'm telling you straight, this situation has a lot of layers.
I can't even find my damn corkscrew, bro. I'ma leave it be. But you know what? Keep Claressa Shields' name out y'all motherfucking mouth. You bitches can't fight like me. Y'all can't squabble. You can't squabble like the Whoa. Bitch, you can't squabble like the Whoa. Watch your motherfucking mouth. Trying to clout chase your way to the top. You look stupid. I try not to get mad on here, but man, bitches popping it all fight week. Like y'all really about something.
Now let's dive in, because many people believe they already had this story figured out. The narrative seems simple. Papoose moved on, Remy Ma is upset, and Claressa Shields is the new partner. Clean and easy to understand, right? But that version isn't holding up anymore. Starting to fall apart pretty fast as more details come into focus. So let's go back and rewind to the moment when things first began to feel off, because that's where everything really starts to change. Remy dropped a track and threw her shots. And honestly, nothing about that was unusual for that space. But then Papoose immediately followed it up by posting pictures showing his wedding ring. Now stop right there for a second. Why bring the ring into the picture right in the middle of all this? Be real. What would your first thought be if you saw that? Because from where I'm standing, it didn't feel random at all. It looked like a man making a quiet statement without actually saying it out loud. Almost like, I'm still married. That's still my wife. But here's where things shift. Remy didn't respond the way people expected. There was no emotional reaction, no public back and forth, nothing that suggested she was trying to hold on or pull him back. If anything, it gave off the impression that she was fully checked out. And that raises a question. Do you think that hit his ego at all? Because what comes next after that starts to line up in a way that's hard to ignore.
I just love a good outing in my car. Oh my God. Every time I get in here, I be like, put a tash. So I called my brother today, right? And he's like, sis, I know you be in that car, but that's not a regular car. It's a machine. Don't be speeding. And I told him, I done already went 120 in this thing. He talking about don't be going so fast. So I be trying not to, but it's just like it's like the car is just fast.
Because right after that, he suddenly starts being around Claressa a lot more, posting more, showing up more, and doing normal everyday things with her like grocery shopping, all of it getting filmed and shared. Now, don't get me wrong, couples do regular stuff, but this didn't feel completely normal. It felt a bit performative, like something was being shown rather than just happening. So I have to ask, was this real or was it damage control? Because the timing feels a little too perfect to ignore. And this is the part where people really start to raise their eyebrows. Claressa Shields is at the top of her career, a champion, making real money and building a strong legacy. Yet she's tied into a situation with a man who is still legally connected elsewhere, surrounded by constant drama, rumors, and confusion. That's where the uncomfortable question comes in. Why? And it's not about denying feelings are real, but at some point you have to step back and look at the bigger picture of what's actually unfolding here. Now we get into the baby conversation. And that's where things start to shift again. At first, people were saying Claressa might be the one who wanted a child to secure her place in his life. The typical narrative, Remy has his child, so now she wants that same bond. But now the conversation has flipped. People are saying he's actually the one pushing for it. And that's something you really need to sit with and think about. It raises questions when someone still tied to a marriage situation is reportedly pushing for a baby in a new relationship. To some people, that doesn't come off as simple love. It starts to look more like strategy. And yeah, that's a strong way to put it. But the point is this. Once a child is involved, everything changes. There are permanent emotional ties, financial responsibilities, and legal connections. It's no longer just about feelings or a relationship dynamic. That's why people start drawing comparisons to situations where the woman has the career, the money, and the forward momentum, while the man potentially gains long-term stability from that setup. You've seen those patterns before, so when people bring it up here, it's not coming out of nowhere. And I want to know, do you think that's reaching? Or do you see why people are starting to say that? Because this is where the situation gets even more complicated. There have long been rumors and allegations about Papoose having a pattern of stepping outside of relationships. Some people even connect those claims back to circumstances tied to Remy Ma's time in prison. Now, to be clear, none of that is confirmed fact. But the very fact that people are making those connections says a lot about how this situation is being interpreted publicly. It also helps explain why Remy might be fully done with it all. Because if someone goes through a major life event and believes that their partner played a role in the fallout, that changes everything. Would most people really go back after that? Probably not. And that leads into something a lot of people are only now starting to consider. They may not even be officially divorced yet. And that alone adds a whole new layer to everything. People have been searching, checking records, and trying to figure out what's actually been finalized. But nothing fully clear has been made public. So that raises a bigger question. Is this really a clean new relationship? Or is it something unfolding while a marriage still hasn't been legally closed? Because those are two very different realities, and it goes further. Remy has mentioned that during a divorce process, certain ties don't just disappear overnight. Things like health insurance and other legal links can remain in place. So even if things look separated online, there can still be real active connections behind the scenes. And here's the part people aren't talking about enough. If anything serious were to happen, she could still hold the legal authority in certain situations, not Claressa. That's a significant detail. So it makes you think, how do you really build a future with someone when the legal foundation of their last chapter might not even be fully closed yet? That's a real question, and maybe that's exactly why things feel so unstable right now. Claressa is very public, very vocal, fully visible in all of this, but there are signs that she may not actually have complete control over how the situation is unfolding. And when people pick up on that kind of imbalance, they start reacting to it. You can see it in interviews, comments, and online posts, like when she told people to stop asking her about Papoose and focus on her achievements instead. And that's understandable on a personal level. But at the same time, when something is being heavily discussed in public, it's hard to expect people to simply stop paying attention to it. Then just when it feels like things can't get more complicated, more rumors start circulating about other women being involved. People point to patterns, possible overlaps, and similar situations being connected together. Nothing of it is confirmed, but it's enough to keep the conversation going and the speculation growing. And that's the real problem here. It's no longer just one simple storyline. It's become layers stacked on top of layers, and each new detail only makes the situation harder to read clearly. And while all of this is unfolding, Claressa's public image is also starting to take some hits, not just because of the relationship itself, but because of how she's been responding in public. Like that moment with another fighter, where instead of coming off as fully composed and sportsmanlike, her reaction was seen by many as dismissive. People noticed it immediately. Even some of her supporters were questioning what they just saw. At her level, expectations are different. People expect discipline, control, and composure. So when that starts to slip, especially while personal drama is already in the spotlight, it naturally changes how people perceive her. And that's where the conversation shifts again. Is this situation starting to pull her focus away from what she's actually known for? A lot of people seem to think so. They argue she's getting too caught up in proving points publicly instead of just staying focused and moving in silence. Then it becomes this repeating cycle: attention, reaction, distance, response, and back again. And from the outside looking in, people definitely notice it. Which leads to the biggest question in all of this. What if a child actually enters the picture? Because at that point, there's no reversing it. That's a permanent, lifelong connection, whether the situation is stable or not. And if the relationship doesn't last, then things shift into custody issues, financial support, and legal responsibilities. Everything that comes with a long-term tie that can't just be undone. That's why people are calling it rushed and risky, especially when the foundation underneath it all still feels unclear. From the outside looking in, Remy Ma seems emotionally detached and moved on. Papoose, on the other hand, appears like he hasn't fully separated himself from any side of the situation. And Claressa is the one fully present in it, while also having the most at stake professionally and personally. That combination is exactly why the tension keeps building instead of settling. Every angle pulls in a different direction, and none of it feels fully resolved. So the real question becomes, does this eventually calm down and fade out quietly? Or is this just the surface of something bigger that's still unfolding? Because right now, it doesn't really feel like this is anywhere close to the end.